Assalamu alaikum everyone. In this short review of the recent debate between Daniel Haqiqatu and David Wood, I'm going to focus on two main points which David made in the debate which really baffled me and many others who were watching. First, David said that Christians only got violent as a result of being part of the Roman Empire.
Then how do you interpret all of these Christians throughout history, all of the Roman emperors, Christian Roman emperors in the Catholic Church that were killing heretics? In Jesus' name because of their beliefs.
I can tell you. Yeah, I could give you.
You're going to denounce all of that.
This is my take on this. Right? For three centuries, Christians didn't kill anyone. It never occurred to them that they're supposed to control the world. According to the New Testament, the harshest penalty that the church gives as the church is excommunication. Paul says, who am I to judge those outside the church? God will judge those outside the church. So the Christian concept, as far as penalties and so on, hey, you don't want to follow the rules of Christianity. There's the door over there. There's the door. Christians don't cause any problems and will generally be fine under various governments. When Christianity permeated the Roman Empire, the Emperor Constantine eventually gets so he's a pagan, but he gets a dream and he sees a cross. And he in this dream, which he interprets as revelation, it says, conquer by this. So he's supposed to conquer by the cross. What you have there, again, this is my take. What you have after that is a sort of Christian Roman Empire hybrid. And the Roman Empire had a Roman Empire kind of way of doing things. The ideals of the Roman Empire are crush everything that gets in our way, destroy. We have to control the world. We have to conquer. And then now it becomes, and we're doing this with Jesus. We're doing this with Jesus. We're doing this with Christianity. So it's my view that these ideas don't come from Christianity. You never get the idea from the Apostle Paul or from...
There are obvious historical issues with this idea, but let's concede for a moment that he's right about this. Let's assume that Christians only became violent after this union between them and the pagans who used to persecute them. David also claimed that Christianity influenced governments, and he cited child infanticide and gladiator matches as examples.
One thing Christians did early on was to influence governments to have more concern for human life. This was obviously connected to Christian love for others. I'll give two examples. First, when Christians began preaching the gospel in the Roman Empire, the favorite form of entertainment among the Romans was the gladiatorial games. The crowd would cheer with glee as slaves and prisoners were forced to hack each other to pieces. Christians were horrified at the bloodshed because they believed that human beings are created in the image of God. What did they do about it? Well, at first, when they had no political power and Christianity was still an illegal religion, they boycotted the games. Within a century of Christianity becoming a legal religion, Christians had the gladiatorial games abolished throughout the empire. Second, infanticide, killing unwanted babies and leaving them to die, or leaving them to die, was extremely common among the Greeks and Romans. Children born frail or with defects would be tossed in a river or left in the woods to die. Unwanted daughters would be tossed in a river or left in the woods to die. Christians condemned this practice in the first century. In the second and third centuries, when Christianity was still an illegal religion, Christians would collect abandoned babies and care for them. After Christianity was legalized, in 374, the Roman Emperor Valentinian outlawed infanticide and child abandonment. So moral reform spread as Christianity spread.
So let me get this straight. Christians had such a powerful impact on governments that their views of love and peace eradicated bizarre and obvious forms of evil, but in spite of all of that power and influence and change, the Roman way of doing things had far more of an impact on them, their way of life, and culture, that they fell into violence and oppression almost immediately. This is a big historical problem with his argument. If Christians were able to bring an end to things which were essential to the Roman ways of life, it makes no sense that the Roman way of life life would still have such a prevailing, powerful, and dominant grip on them for the rest of their existence until the Reformation comes along. Either Christians, in spite of their righteousness, fell victim to the same people who they were assimilating into their culture, or Christians simply wanted to exercise their new power in a violent way. You can't cite Christian influence over governments as a proof for how New Testament values can shape politics if you're gonna also concede that those same Christians fell head over heels with the culture of their enemies. It doesn't seem like they had your ideas in mind, David. Also, loving people can't possibly be used as a foundation for laws and governance. It is exactly abstract. This is precisely what Daniel was trying to get across to you, but you just kept citing Christian influence over pre-existing governments as a reason for why these values can change things.
Whether you are Christian, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, atheist, agnostic, young, old, white, black, straight, gay, trans, whatever, you are created in the image of God. And Christians are commanded to love and respect you based on our shared nature and the love of God. This doesn't mean that we have to love and respect your ideas or your decisions or your actions. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be punished for crimes. We can love someone and still believe that he's a danger to others and that he needs to be stopped.
You got it. This one from Zach Halilovic. Thank you very much. Says, for David, could you clarify how Christian tradition laid out a system of governance to deal with problems such as violence and intolerance based off of biblical verses? If it is not clear, isn't that a problem?
No, again, it's not the same as the mindset in Islam, where you get this set of rules that you are supposed to impose on a society. Christians spread their ideas about other human beings and how we're supposed to treat other human beings and how we're supposed to love and have concern and seek peace with other people. And they spread the ideas, and these things influence.
First of all, the wince-worthiness of this line of reasoning. Imagine going to a government, telling them abstract things like, humans have value, love them, be nice, and then telling them to make laws based off of these ideas. Not even the man-made human rights movement is based off of such reasoning. True, their human rights are inventions, but they're inventions exactly because they know that you can't enforce something as nebulous as be good. In order for you to talk about human rights, you need to tell people what those rights are, so that you can protect those rights and punish those who violate them. If you don't have a system like this, then you can't protect rights and you can't punish those who violate them. It's an anarchy. What rights are humans owed in the first place? What things do they deserve? You said the church could punish people for certain crimes. Okay. What things do and do not warrant punishment? What things can I do in a Christian nation which would warrant a punishment? What would that punishment be? David can't honestly think that bringing this fortune cookie mumbo-jumbo could ever influence a government to do jack crap. The Old Testament contains answers to these questions, but you can't go to that if you're under the New Covenant, right? Even the examples he cited earlier were the result of Christians being in power. David thinks that the Bible gives Christians no position to set such a system up. They can only affect governments which are already there. But affect them how? If we were to have a conversation about prohibiting or at least restricting alcohol or banning things like pornography, making our citizens dress in a decent manner so as to not lead to sexual promiscuity, these things are going to involve fiqh, jurisprudence, government, enforcement of that government. Should such things be banned? If so, then how would we go about doing it? Should we do it gradually, since so many people are hooked on it and we need to ease them out of their evil vices? Even then, what should we put in place to make sure it is actually banned? Islam can offer answers to all of these questions because it tackles the topic of government head on. David thinks Christianity can answer these questions, but you can't answer questions of what to do with a dress code, alcohol, and sexual promiscuity by telling politicians to love people. It's useless. The second argument I want to tackle is actually related to an age-old argument of his he raises against the Muslim perspective of Jesus. What I'm getting from all this, Jesus came with a message of love, peace, and pacifism, while conveniently never telling us what to do if we ever needed to get violent, but instead telling us to never get violent even under practical circumstances. So much for just war theory.
Just war theory.
But here's where things get juicy. Remember that video David did trying to show that Muslims disrespect Jesus? His point was basically that Muslims believe that Jesus came with a perfect Islamic message, but he screwed it up so badly that it got lost almost immediately, and his followers fell into many false and deviated beliefs. According to Mr. Wood, in this view, Jesus was a failure.
What did Jesus ultimately accomplish according to Islam?
Yeah, what did he?
Exactly. Nothing. What did he do? Tell me something he did that lasted, that he got done, that made the world a better place. That's one of God's greatest messengers, a guy who doesn't do anything. He chose his followers. They all got corrupted somehow. He didn't do anything that lasted. After all of that, after the most miraculous life ever, nothing lasted. And you're telling me you respect Jesus when that's how you portray him, as this incompetent guy who spends all these years doing this and just doesn't get the job done. And so that's why we need Muhammad, because he comes along later and he gets the job done, right? He gets things done. Jesus couldn't make it work. You see, you don't think about these things. You don't look, you just believe what you hear, and oh, we respect Jesus, and you never think about the actual implications of what you believe.
So according to David, if Jesus gives a message but his followers drop the ball so badly that it amounts to nothing, he failed. But David basically just said that the same thing already happened. His hippie views of Christianity didn't go throughout history. Even by his own statement, they were only present in the early centuries. After that, all the way until the Reformation, all Christians were going against Jesus completely. They weren't true believers. So David, what did his message cash out to? Nothing really. He failed. His followers were barely hippies, and only for a little while, and as soon as they were finally not being persecuted anymore as a result of being part of the government, they became bad Christians for using violence. They stayed this way for all their history, even through Islamic history, until atheists beat them into reinterpreting their texts, thus leading to a Reformation which has caused more damage to Christianity than the Islamic boogeyman could ever dream of doing. And you claim you respect Jesus. Subhanallah.
You see, you don't think about these things. You don't look. You just